All right, welcome in you guys. Today we are going to be reading comments from the 11:20 full spoiler video. So keep in mind that while we read through these, if we get something wrong or if the comments get something wrong, it's not our fault. It's because the chapter hasn't fully released yet and we're going off of the description of it. So yeah, with that being said, let's get this started and see what people are talking about. Oh wow, isn't that strange? Look at that. The first comment, it's me talking about the old format. So yes, as you may have noticed, last video was actually the old format where we read through the whole thing together and you guys can follow along at the same time. And like I said, as time goes on, we'll do those more and more often so that eventually they're all the old format. You know, once I know that it's safe to finally come out on YouTube, typically with sponsors, because I think it just kind of lines in pretty well. And if the video does get hit, you know, we have the sponsor to back us up there. All right, so now on to the first comment of the video. We have, name a better duo than the Straw Hats running away from someone and an ally blowing themselves up to help them escape. Funny enough, this sounds like it happens pretty often based on how they worded it and due to the fact that there's a lot of likes on this comment, but I only think it happened here and on Whole Cake Island with Pedro. And also, people are predicting that Emeth will also explode. So, I mean, there's that too. Let's see here. Next comment says, the One Piece is going to be the friends who blew up along. Look at that, dude. Only 2 people blew up. I mean, technically Pell, you know, Pell blew up too. But he survived, which is weird. I still don't know why he brought Pell back. Pell hasn't brought any significance to the story whatsoever, man. The guy literally wasn't even there when King Cobra died. You know, like... And outside of that, he's just back in the country, just chilling at the funeral. Like, Pell doesn't really do much. And the thing is, I'm going on a tangent now. The thing is, they hyped up Pell as one of the 5 only Devil Fruit users, Zoan users, that could actually fly. For someone who could fly, he's not that fly. I don't know what it is with Pell. Who else exploded? I think that's it, right? Yeah, well, I mean, I guess you could consider a Buster Call an explosion. Yeah, okay, we'll move on. If more people exploded and I just don't remember, please let me know down below. So another comment says, the government just waited for the revolutionaries to leave Tequila Wolf and brought new slaves to keep building the bridge. But this just shows that freeing the people without changing the system is useless. Dragon has to take down the celestial dragons to really make things change. And I 1000% agree with that. I was shocked. I'm still shocked that Tequila Wolf has slaves. I'm surprised Dragon didn't make that a home base. I mean, I feel like that's a great place for a base, right? Maybe not since they know you're there, but either way, like, how many other places has Dragon invaded only for that place to get reinstated the following day? You know what I mean? Like, going back to Sorbet Kingdom for a minute, Dragon showed up at Sorbet Kingdom, he freed Kuma, he saved the citizens, and everything was fine and dandy. But a couple years later, King Bakori came back with the world government behind him, and if Kuma wasn't there, Bakori would be ruling Sorbet Kingdom to this very day. Yeah, he's completely right. If Dragon really wants to make a change, then he has to tackle the root of the issue, which I'm sure he's going to. You know, that's his whole plan here. He's waiting for the Holy Knights. So he knows that things just get worse tomorrow, but at least you can give people a temporary fix. I think that's totally fine, and I'm not dogging Dragon for that either, you know. He doesn't exactly have... Well, okay, we don't know the numbers of his army, but I'm assuming he doesn't have the manpower to just stay at Tequila Wolf and make sure slaves don't come there again, you know what I mean? So yeah, that makes sense. That's just kind of how the world is. Unless you have a permanent fix to a situation, the problem is just going to come right back. It's like weed killer, you know? It's like the common cold. You know, every year that common cold just keeps on coming back into the world. So another comment says, the origin of Clover's family name. The Sword of... Okay, I gotta zoom in for this one. The Sword of Light, Clo means solace, is a trope object that appears in a number of Irish and Scottish Gaelic folk tales. The sword appears commonly as any quest object in the Irish folklore of a hero seeking the one story, which culminates in discovery of a tale of the werewolf. The one story equals the One Piece or the Void Century. Funny enough, okay, you know, I'm gonna throw my 2 cents in here, my own theory piece into this, but I do have a theory about werewolves and how there's probably a werewolf holy knight in the world government. So, you know, I love that he drops the werewolf thing. I know it has nothing to do with his actual theory, but yeah, love this. I think there's another comment further down that also talked about Clover's family name being Irish inspired, which is pretty sick. I love this. I haven't done any research myself yet, but if I were to start, I would definitely start with all of this. So thank you so much for that comment. I love insightful ones like this. They're so great. Next one says, something I like, oh, big one. Something I like about Lilith being the final Vegapunk that survived is that although Lilith is the evil Vegapunk, she was the one to care the most about the other Vegapunks. She panicked when she thought the Seraphim killed Edison, or when Atlas was beaten by Lucci. Just like how the world government framed Luffy as evil, when everything he does is to protect and free his friends, or how we assume the same with Joy Boy. Lilith, labeled evil, but has shown that she cares the most about her friends. She is perfect to stick with our crew. And yeah, I agree with that. I never looked that deep into it, but yeah, Lilith does care a lot about her friends. And the thing with her being evil is that it just shows that the satellites can grow over time. You know, she starts off as evil. She starts off with that one Vegapunk emotion or personality trait, but she expands as she lives. And that gives me a lot of hope for the Seraphim as well, right? They were bred to just be these soldiers of war. But as time goes on, I'm sure their personalities will start to flourish, and they won't just be carbon and paste copies of the warlords they're based on. At some point, they're going to have their own personality start shining. So yeah, I like this a lot. I feel like, okay, by the way, I'm skipping over a lot of the replies to comments, not because I want to ignore them, but because I feel like we'll just be here forever if we do, you know, like, I think this video is averaging at 300 comments right now. If we sit here for all 300, we are going to be here all day. So next one says, 2 videos in a row, Sai is praising a giant robot. Am I living in two-piece? Okay. I still don't like giants. I still don't like robots. I think Emeth's design is still very mundane. Not a big fan whatsoever. He's only thrown punches. I think he is still super lame. But narratively, that's different. See, the thing is, I hate a lot of characters in One Piece, but I still enjoy when they get their W's. Kind of how it is, you know? Emeth is in that camp for me. Don't like him whatsoever. You know, if you were to put a piece of paper with Emeth's face on it, I would not like that piece of paper. But if you wrote out the description of Emeth and told me what he does and what he says, I'd be on board, you know? So that's just kind of how it is. You know, I live in this perpetual state of being a hater and a lover at the same time. All right, so I said I wasn't going to read the replies, but I got one guide. It's cringe. He was talking smack about the giant before. I'll still talk smack. I hate his design. You know, like, if you go back to that video, I said it. I don't like the fact that he took 20 chapters to finally do something. Still hate that. I stand true to what I say. But of course, like I said, as chapters go on, opinions can change. Correction. Luffy used Voice of All Things to speak to Momo when he was falling into the ocean. And yes, I completely forgot about this part. The thing with Luffy, though, is I still don't know if he even knows what he did. And that's kind of where I'm falling right now. Like, when it comes to Luffy and the Voice of All Things, it's kind of just like, okay, he has it. He can hear things, but does he know it's special? Like right now, the way I'm viewing Luffy and the Voice of All Things is kind of like when Luffy first used King's Haki, right? Back in Impel Down. He used it. He was essentially unconscious. You know, he saved Bon Clay, and then he used it again at Marineford. Both times he used it in a proper manner, but he had no clue what it was. You know, it was until Rayleigh actually trained him in it that Luffy realized its potential. And then in the Kaido fight, he mastered it. You know, so I kind of view it the same way. He has the Voice of All Things. He's used it before, but I don't know if Luffy can willingly use it or if it's just like an instinctual thing. You know what I mean? All right, so on another note, this comment's actually pretty solid, but it says, what if the thing that Emeth was talking about doing is pirate docking 6? Hey, I think this guy freaking cooked with this one. So Pirate Docking 6 is the goofy ability. It's like a gag ability that Frankie was going to use back in Thriller Bark, where, you know, he had Robin in one arm, Usopp on the other. You know, I think Zoro was on his leg. You know, Sanji was on the other. Like, it was ridiculous, but they didn't actually use it. Emeth could potentially use it. I don't know how. You know, I don't know who's going to jump on Emeth and help him transform. But maybe. Who truly knows what this void sensory technology can actually do? Right? I mean, the robot apparently in this chapter tries to do this rocket punch, which is something Frankie's done before. So maybe, you know, Frankie and this Emeth guy, maybe they got some connections there. So the reply says, that would be the second strongest thing, only behind Afro Luffy. Yeah, dude, we need to bring the gags back. You know, we need to bring more gags back into One Piece. I am all about that. Bring goofiness back to the fights. For the One Piece verse, being able to turn off items dash devices this advanced just by the flick of a switch is actually pretty high tech, yeah. I mean, it pretty much is. It's so odd. It's so odd. Like, this is in reference to Atlas turning off Lilith's GPS tracker, because they made it seem super simple. I mean, theoretically, I wonder if Atlas could have just flicked off her own switch and then just stayed on the Elbaf ship. I mean, of course, Venus would be a problem for the Thousand Sunny group, but I'm sure they would have found a way, right? I mean, they got Zoro and Jinbei up there. Come on, come on. And then they got Usopp, they got Nami. Like, they're crafty guys up there. I think they would have been just fine if Atlas didn't off herself. So, the next comment says, when you read, I'm glad to be able to fight for you again, Joy Boy, I actually started getting tears in my eyes. I feel Emeth is going to die and it's going to be sad. It's like some Bon Clay action right here. He might have been Joy Boy's Bon Clay. Yeah, it was pretty sad. I will admit, reading that, I was kind of choked up a little bit. It's like, oh god, no, not this giant robot that I hate. But at the same time, I feel like the emotions aren't exactly there yet because we don't know enough about him. I feel like this is going to be one of those Ace situations where Ace died at Marineford. It's sad in the moment, but you go on, and then when we get the Ace backstory, it gets even sadder. Because I actually don't think we're going to get the Emeth backstory right here. You know, I feel like as time goes on, when we get the Void Century flashback, we will actually get that. And then it comes full circle, and then we can look at Emeth again and be like, yo, this scene is even sadder now. It's kind of like Kuma, right? Kuma died during Marineford, or right before Marineford. But we're just now feeling sad for the guy. You know, Ivankov was pretty choked up about it. Like, oh, Kuma, you don't remember me? Like, that's horrible. And then here we are years later, finally feeling that Ivankov pain. So now, the next comment says, yes, sir. Love to see the old spoiler format. Size facial expressions in the Raycon ad got me dead. Yeah, I had a lot of fun doing that one. So why does the homie look like the bad guy from Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift? Yeah, DK is more buff, unfortunately. But let me tell you, I actually get this a lot. I mean, whether it's a joke, whether it's a meme, I do actually hear this sometimes in my daily life. It's kind of crazy. All right, so this one is pretty hilarious. It says, next chapter, we're going to see Denjiro executing the kids. All right. I like this. You know, I'm on board. I'm all about darker manga. If Denjiro just starts killing those kids in the cover story, I mean, hey, you're not going to hear me crying, right? It's not going to be an Emeth situation, you know what I mean? But yeah, Denjiro executing the kids. Great ideas. I'll make sure to send this to Oda's SBS corner. Why didn't Denjiro kill the kids? So the next comment says, you gotta give credit to the engineer who built Emeth. Being able to install the voice of all things into him, it has to mean that a particular engineer himself has the voice of all things, I believe. And like how Vegapunk figured out the nature of devil fruits and how to replicate it, the Void Century engineer was able to replicate the voice of all... Wow, you know what? I didn't even think about that. Yeah, actually, I was looking at this robot the entire time like he was just a giant piece of metal, but no, this guy's right. No, he's completely right. Actually, wait, what? That's insane. Yeah, I need to sleep on that one, actually. Okay. All right, so the next comment says, they get new slaves every time in Tequila Wolf. Also, bro, imagine being stuck and impaled down while their water rises, being trapped forever until you die. I know they're already in prison and set to perish, but still, this means absolutely no escape. I mean, the thing with impaled down, though, is that, to be fair, Doflamingo said, hey, you know, looks like we have to go higher up. And Magellan kind of like, he took heed of it. We don't know if he's actually going to act on it, but there is a chance that the impaled down prisoners go somewhere else. So there may be still a chance out there for them to survive. As far as Tequila Wolf, though, that must suck. You know, it's another one of those Fisher Tiger situations, right? Fisher Tiger saved the slaves of Marie Joie, only for them to get more slaves, right? You know, it's the same thing here. Imagine getting to Tequila Wolf and being like, damn, I can't wait till Dragon saves us again. You know, please, somebody. You know, I came here a day late before the Dragon raid. Yeah, that would absolutely suck. So now, next comment says, Luffy can't be that stupid when the thing calls him Joy Boy multiple times. Luffy is goofy, but he isn't that stupid. And my response to this is that we shouldn't underestimate anime stupidity, or even real life stupidity. When you think that people can't be stupid, they can get even stupider. That's just how it is. I don't know how Luffy's brain is working right here, especially when he is looking at the robot and the robot's probably looking at him dead in the eyes. But it happened. I mean, you gotta remember, back on Skypiea, Luffy got swallowed by Nora, a giant snake, and walked around for like 10 chapters, wondering where the hell he's at. You know, like, things can happen, brother. You know, like, Luffy hasn't exactly been the smartest guy on the crew. All right, so now the next comment below it says, wow, chapter 1120. Can't believe we are this far into the series. Yeah, time passes, man. Time definitely flies by. And even just going further, man, like 27-year anniversary next week. 27 years. That's crazy. I feel like people have essentially grown up with One Piece at this point, you know? You start One Piece when you're a kid, and here you are as an adult still reading and following One Piece. It's insane how One Piece has had that impact. And to me, at least, what's the most impressive thing about this is that One Piece airs weekly. We get a new chapter almost every week. A new episode almost every week. We get One Piece video games, One Piece movies, One Piece... there's an ice skating One Piece show, a live-action Netflix show for One Piece. It's like, yo, we're eating good. All right, so the next comment says, maybe the voice of all things is a way of communication between Ds. I know Law couldn't hear Zunisha, but maybe you have to unlock it, and some people don't, or just don't naturally unlock it. Yeah, that could be it too. The thing with Law, though... So we didn't get a panel of him hearing Zunisha, but there was this weird panel where Law might have sensed the whale forest or the whale tree on Zunisha's back. Because I went back and there's a panel where they're like, oh, you know, I get an eerie feeling from this tree. And then they showed Law and he kind of like had his hat down. So maybe he has the voice of all things, but they just haven't shown it yet. But also, you know, going to Wano, Law was one of the few people who could hear Luffy's voice when he was getting back up. So there is a chance that he has the voice of all things and he just hasn't, like he says, mastered it or unlocked it yet. The only thing I would contest about this idea right here is simply, why does Momonosuke have the voice of all things, and likewise for his dad Odin? Of course, like he says, he goes on and says maybe other people can get it too. One interesting thing about this, though, is that this does stem from the Ancient Kingdom, right? The Ds are most likely all from the Ancient Kingdom, so maybe, since they're so high-tech, they implanted this telecommunication device in their heads, and it's just passed down through generations. I know it sounds weird. The idea doesn't exactly sound like something out of One Piece, but Vegapunk himself did say that in the Void Century, the technology was way better than what we see here at Egghead Island. So it is kind of possible. So the next comment says, I'm thinking that Emeth will do the same thing as Atlas, just at a much larger scale. Yes, I believe this as well, but I saw another comment earlier that said the explosion idea is too obvious. And ever since I read that, my head was spinning. It's like, maybe he's right. You know, like, surely Oda was like, hey, everyone's expecting an explosion. I got to do something else. So I do kind of want to keep my doors open when it comes to what Emeth could do. But, you know, I can't really imagine much else other than a big explosion. So now, going on to the next comment, it says, Lilith was the first punk to meet them and is the last one to leave. That is poetry. It really is. It really is. And, you know, if you want to speak about poetic, Lilith was introduced with the Vega Force 1. So, you know, Lilith and the giant robot being the first things we see, and now they're going to be the last things we see. Even more poetic. And now the next comment says, oh, Pedro, everyone wants to be you nowadays. Yeah, don't be a Pedro, guys. Don't blow yourselves up. That's a bad idea. That's a very bad idea. But yeah, dude, Pedro, man. I think the craziest thing about Pedro, though, is that he didn't have to blow himself up. And the thing with Atlas, I talked about it earlier, but I do think that they could have made it out even if Atlas didn't blow herself up too. I really do think that. I mean, they're afraid of Nasujiro's slash attack because he could hit them in the air. But, okay, don't get me wrong. You know, I'm not trying to hype up Zoro to insurmountable tasks, but I feel like Zoro should be able to block it, right? You know, Venus sends out a slash, Zoro comes in, just... Because, I mean, Zoro, he didn't deflect, but he stalled off Kaido and Big Mom's Hakuroku sovereignty for like 3 seconds, so maybe Zoro could do that for Nasujiro. Who knows? Who knows? I feel like they could have made it out of that all right. You know, Atlas, you could have still been here, brother. All right, so the next comment says, I think the reason why York thinks Lilith is dead is because Lilith's mind-consciousness suddenly turned off, and then her GPS tracker thing turned off, which to York, who is in the remote location, that's a sign that she was killed. I don't think pressing the button to keep York from knowing they're still around was the only thing that would have kept her out. And yeah, I see this. I get the argument. I guess where I was kind of at with this is that who would have killed Lilith, right? If you're in Yorick's position, I guess she doesn't have like a mind's eye and can see everything that's going on the island. But it would kind of be like, oh, you know, Venus is over here, 4 of the Gorosei are down there. How did Lilith die on the Thousand Sunny? That's kind of what I was thinking. But I do agree with this, right? You die, then the GPS cuts out. It makes a lot of sense. And if Yorick can't see anything on the battlefield, then yeah, I could see how she thinks Lilith is definitely dead. The sad part is that Yorick does have communications with the Gorosei, so she could easily call up and be like, hey, who killed Lilith, right? Because last chapter, and even the chapter before that, Yorick was the one talking to all the Gorosei through her command room and told the Gorosei that, you know, Emeth is the one broadcasting the signal, and they all heard her right away. So I feel like, you know, this is an issue that could have been solved with basic communication on Yorick and the enemy team's part. So now it says, the robot will self-destruct, saving the crew at the cost of the message. I don't think so, actually. I feel like we will get the entirety of the message. Because Vegapunk is now in the final phase of it, I'm pretty confident that we're going to get the rest of it. I think Vegapunk is going to be able to say his piece, and that's it. Actually, one piece that he hasn't said yet, that I'm curious to see if he'll tie into the finale, is I wonder if he'll tie in the name of the ancient kingdom. Because he knows it. You know, he read the books from Ohara. He knows Clover. He knows that ancient kingdom name. He's got to drop it. I feel like he's going to drop it. Maybe that's when the robot blows up and then we lose the message. But I personally would be a little bit shocked if Oda cut off the ancient kingdom name twice in the series. But then again, he brought Roger back twice in this message, so who knows, man? Who knows? Who knows? So next it says, one of the few channels not clickbaiting. I clickbait the hell out of my videos. What are you talking about? So now, the next comment says, I would like to give Emeth a pass. He's good. That makes me happy you said that. Also, the voice of all things, maybe Emeth speaks an old lost language from 1,000 years ago, and the voice of all things breaks the time barrier and language differences and bridges all of these things. Just a thought. And yeah, this is something we actually see in a lot of fantasy media or isekai in anime, where you get isekai'd, you can't speak the language, you don't know what the hell's happening, and then boom, you got the voice of all things, and all of a sudden you can communicate. I feel like this could be the exact same thing. I feel like I'm liking almost every Void Century voice of all things theory I see. So yeah, this is a good one. This is a good one. All right, so the next comment says, according to the latest wave of Vivre cards, there's a member of the Uzuki family alive. He should probably be the new daimyo of Udon, like his family was before Orochi. Okay, I have not looked at the new Vivre cards, I will admit. I saw the first 10, and I saw they were all Straw Hat members, and we were just getting info we already knew, so I kind of started skimming through them, so I actually missed this. I need to go back and check it out, but if that's true, that'll be big. That'll be big. So next comment says, Yo, Sai, I just noticed that you look like Takashi from Tokyo Told you guys. I told you guys. Next comment says, I wonder if Warkuri has regenerated his tusk that got broken off the last chapter. I don't know, maybe Emeth was able to stall the regeneration, or it just takes a while for it to kick in, lol. And I completely agree. And another way to spin this too, is that maybe he doesn't want to regenerate his tusk right away. You know, maybe he's okay with fighting Tusklisk for a chapter or two, and then he'll regenerate later. You know, because we don't exactly know how that works yet. Like, does it take up stamina? Do they have to, you know, stand still for a little bit and regenerate? Not too sure. But as far as the tusk goes, I guess it is vital to his fighting style. Because so far, whenever he's attacked, when he uses his tusk, he turns them into blades. So maybe he wants to regenerate that sooner rather than later. But I don't know. I mean, thankfully, he has Big Brother Jupiter over here fighting the robot for him. And now the comment below this says, I think it's so funny. Luffy was just like, Joy Boy, who the F is that? Yeah, Luffy, he's gonna be Luffy, man. Until somebody spells it out for him in the simplest way possible, Luffy's not gonna connect the dots. The Straw Hat escape plan. In Alabasta, Mr. 2 went to Impel Down. In his lobby, the Going Merry comes to life, only to sink moments later. So Bodhi, Kuma repels the Straw Hats away at the cost of his mind. Impel Down, Mr. 2 stays there. Whole Cake Island, Pedro uses self-destruct. Egghead, Atlas uses... Wow, okay. See, this is what I'm glad about. You know, somebody's actually coming out here and dropping the full details. Yeah, you're right. We have lost a lot of people on our journey, man. Or made a lot of sacrifices. Granted, I will say this. a lot of these sacrifices are ones we did not ask for. You know, like if you were to tell the Straw Hats, hey, would you want to sacrifice these guys? They'd say no. You know, like they didn't want this to happen, but these guys, they were ready, man. They knew their time and place, and they wanted to go out with the bang. I mean, at least that's how Pedro's mindset was, right? Pedro was like, hey, I finally found a place to die. You know, like he remembered Roger's words, and Roger was like, hey, Pedro, one day you'll have your moment. And then Pedro took that and said, my moment is now, brother, and then just lit it up. That's always still such a funny scene to me. I don't know why. I know it's sad because Pedro died, but I do feel bad for Pero Spedo because Pero Spedo was just going to capture him. He was turning him into candy, freezing him in place, and then all of a sudden Pero Spedo lost his arm. And then he goes over to Onigashima, and then Carrot, Wanda, Duke, and Neko, they're all blaming him for Pedro's death. And it's like, dude, Pero Spedo was just doing his job. You know, he didn't blow Pedro up. What is going on here? I don't know. I still laugh at that, though. So now, this says, based off of Saturn's reaction to the Mother Flame, I feel like Emeth might nuke himself using the power of whatever Mother Flame ember may reside within him. And yep, this is kind of where I'm at too. I feel like if it's a simple explosion, that wouldn't be Void Century coded enough for me. You know, like, I mean, granted, it could just be like a extra large explosion that the Void Century technology was able to produce. But yeah, I feel like it is going to be laced with something that makes it to where the Elders can't regenerate fast enough to actually chase down the Straw Hats. I think they'll still be able to regenerate and survive this ordeal, but I think they're going to be like, okay, we can't chase the Straw Hats anymore. You know, they're too far. This is going to take all day to recover from. Let's just go home. I feel like Emeth has to have that sort of impact. For how highly he's built up, he needs to go out with a big special bang. All right, so the next comment says, what if Clover's brother had dark hair and had a child with a certain white-haired woman that lived in O'Hara? Miko Robin, the hidden D-clan. Yeah, you know what? That's not bad. Yeah, I haven't heard this before. Yeah, maybe. People have been wondering who Robin's dad is. I feel like this would make a lot of sense. And it would also explain, I mean, granted, Clover's a good guy, but it would explain why Clover held Robin in such high regards and brought her into the study in the first place. I feel like this does actually fit pretty well. And hey, this could even explain why Olvia also had an obsession with the poneglyphs as well and research. Maybe it all stemmed from the husband. Yeah, I could see that actually. All right, so the next and final comments say that Clover's brother's name means sword. In Irish mythology, it is one of the 4 treasures of, oh, I can't even pronounce that. I'm not going to try. But it's of that tribe. And he's also known as the Sword of Lightning. Well, that's pretty cool. But also, this kind of ties in with Luffy and Sun God Nika and Joy Boy, right? Because when we got the Who's Who silhouette of Sun God Nika, he had a sword and a spear. And then Luffy, when he fought Kaido, wielded a lightning bolt, right? He rubberized the lightning and then he threw it at him. It missed, but he did it, you know? So maybe this has some significance. You know, maybe there's going to be a spear somewhere out there and they're going to come into play and be another member of the D-Clan. So last one now. It says, Mazinger is one of the first popular giant robo series created by Devilman mangaka Go Nagai. It premiered in Shonen Jump and pioneered the mecha genre, being the first robot warrior to have a guy piloting it. I didn't know that, actually. You know, you guys know me. I don't like robots, so typically I stay away from mecha anime, even like the classics. But yeah, this is a really cool reference. I like when Oda brings in outside influences into One Piece. You know, granted, he does that all the time, but it's always cool to see. So yes, thank you for the insight as well. And hey, thank you guys for staying and being a part of this video. I really freaking appreciate it. And I will catch you guys next week when One Piece's 27th anniversary chapter drops. My name is Sai, and I'm signing out. Peace.